It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to this edition of Q&A with the Coach. As always, if you have questions for the next episode of Q&A with the Coach, just leave your questions in the comment section here on YouTube. Right down there, write a comment, write your question. I'm going to read it. And if I think it's something that needs an answer, I will give you an answer. Our question today comes from Mr. Drummer Boy, who says, I've always had this question. How is weight cutting an advantage if everyone is doing it? When I first started watching MMA, I was confused because they were all weighing in at the same weight. In my head, I was like, there's no way they weigh exactly the same. Then I learned about weight cutting and I was like, oh, that's stupid. Why don't they actually weigh what they say that they do? I believe we have a word for that. It's called cheating. It might seem like that to you, Mr. Drummer Boy. But look, why do people cut weight? Before we get into that question, take a look at my shirt. It says X Marshall on it. It's got a design on it. It's a nice t-shirt. Get your own at xmarshall.com and use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. A huge selection of shirts, spats, shorts, rash guards, jiu-jitsu, training, gear, stuff for all kinds of martial arts, boxing gloves, MMA gloves, gis, etc. Go get your gear at xmarshall.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off. Now back to the question. Why do fighters cut weight when everybody's doing it? Now, hypothetically speaking, if nobody cut weight, let's say we're in the welterweight division in the UFC. Nobody's cutting weight. Nobody's ever thought about cutting weight before. Everybody actually walks around at 170 pounds, or 169.5. Everybody walks around at that weight, at their fighting weight. But then one guy has the bright idea. Hey, you know what? I actually weigh 185 pounds. And if I sit in a sauna and I sweat off 15 pounds, spit in a bucket, poop, get rid of some of this extra weight that I can easily put back on because there's a 24-hour period after the weigh-ins before the fight, I'm going to have an advantage, a size advantage, a weight advantage, and yea, even a strength advantage, for I have bigger muscles than my adversaries. And this guy does that thing. And it's not against the rules, and if it's not against the rules, it's not cheating. And then this guy has a big advantage. And then other people see this. Hey, this guy's bigger than us. What's he doing? Oh, he's cutting weight. Let's try that. So now everybody's cutting weight. Because everybody realizes if they don't cut weight, they will be the smallest person in the division. And they will be punching up, fighting an uphill battle. It will be much harder for them to compete in that weight class. So you asked, why do fighters cut weight when everybody is doing it? They are cutting weight because everybody is doing it. Because if they didn't, once again, they would effectively be fighting guys an entire weight class above them. And that would be stupid. That would be foolish. That would be dangerous. Weight cutting is dangerous. I don't like it. I think it's silly. I think it's stupid. I think it should stop. And the only way to do it, contrary to what the apologists of ONE FC's weight cutting practices would tell you, the only way to abolish weight cutting is to establish same-day weigh-ins, meaning the fighters weigh in immediately before the fight. But Ramsey, if they do that, then some fights would get canceled. Yeah, some fights already get canceled. But if we tell the fighters in advance, well in advance, we spell out the rules. We are changing the rule now. It will now be day of weigh-ins, meaning you weigh in immediately before your fight. And if you do not make the weight, you do not fight. Period. End of story. Some people would be very upset by that because they make their living off of coaching fighters in weight cuts, or they are fighters who make their living doing this oddly specific weight cut. Once again, if it's not against the rules, it's not cheating. I know you feel like it is. But that's not what cheating means. The fact that you don't like it doesn't make it cheating. I don't like it either. It's not cheating. My first 3 MMA fights had day of weigh-ins. And all of the kickboxing matches I did in the United States also had day of weigh-ins. Meaning we would weigh in an hour, sometimes less, before we would actually get in the ring or in the cage and fight. And it worked. And very few fights were canceled. Because every fighter understood, I have to show up at this weight. There's no time to sweat it all off. I have to show up at 170 pounds if I'm going to fight as a welterweight, for example. I can't show up at 185 and say, well, it's okay. No, it's not okay. It worked because everybody understood the rule. Everybody currently in the UFC also understands the rule. There's a 24-hour period between the weigh-in and the fight. And in that time, you can rehydrate. You can put the weight back on. Not cheating. Why do they do it? I've been asked this question so many times on this channel. I've been asked this question so many times in person. I don't know why it doesn't make sense. Why they do it. They do it because everybody is doing it. And if they don't, they will be an entire weight class below their opponent. I'm repeating myself at this point. If they don't, they will be at a huge disadvantage. If they don't do this thing that is perfectly legal, it is not cheating, it is not against the rules, they will not succeed. Or if they do succeed, it's going to be exponentially more difficult for them. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, explain to me how it doesn't make sense in the comments below. Please, explain to me how that does not make sense. And if the answer is, well, I don't like it, that's not the same as an explanation of why it doesn't make sense. Let's talk about steroids for a minute. What if the UFC changed its rules about performance-enhancing drugs and said fighters can now take any substances that they want and made that legal? And what if all the governments of the world said, yeah, fighters can take whatever they want to, why not? So it's legal, both in the eyes of the law and of the sport. There's no rule against it, and one fighter gets this idea, I'm going to get juiced up to the gills to get a big advantage over the other guys who don't. And then he starts dominating the sport. What would probably happen? Well, all the other fighters would probably think, well, if I want to win that big money, I better get juiced up to the gills too. And then eventually we would have something else on our hands. But that's, yeah. Imagine for a minute. Let's compare this to a different sport. Racing, running, the 300-meter dash, right? You sprint 300 meters. What if the rules said you can either start on the designated starting line or you can start 100 meters ahead? And that was the rule. And most of the racers are like, why would I start on the designated starting line if I can start 100 meters ahead? But then one guy said, well, I feel like that would be cheating. I don't like the way that rule reads, so I will start on the designated starting line. And then that guy loses because he's 100 meters behind the other guys. when he could have chosen to start 100 meters ahead like everybody else, on an even playing field, if you will. But it feels like cheating, but the rules say it's not. Cheating is breaking the rules. The rule might be stupid. The rule might be dumb. The rule might make you feel bad, but that's the rule. That's it, man. That's it. If I can say all that and it still doesn't make sense, once again, please explain to me how. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.